Okay. All right. What we have here is just a basic skills problem, right? This is not anything with solving quadratic equations or even factoring, but it is something we need to know how to do if we are going to be able to use completing the square and our square root properties and any of that to help us solve quadratic equations. Okay? So when we evaluate a square root, right? Pretty much what you're looking at, and all these examples are gonna evaluate nice and cleanly for the most part. What you are looking for is you are looking for a number that multiplies by itself to give you that, right? So if I have a number like if I have 16, right, I would say, okay, what multiplies by itself to give me 16? Well, you think about it like this way. Well, that would be 4 times 4, right? And so when you get that, right, the answer to this would be 4, right? And so it's whatever number you multiply by itself to give you that number in there, right? And so 400, you think to yourself, what number do I multiply by itself to get 400? Well, the answer is you get 400 from going 20 times 20, right? So that's the number. So your answer, you could just say 20. Now, what I didn't mention up here is that not only does 4 times 4 equal 16, but negative 4 times negative 4 also equals 16, right? It also equals positive 16 because the negative times the negative cancels out, right? So the correct answer to this is positive and negative 20. And if you don't like how that looks, you could say 20 and negative 20. You could write it like that as well. But this is positive and negative, right? That's how those are the signs we use. That's how this works. Okay, this next one, we have a bit of a conundrum, right? Because we have a negative sign in here. And so if you need a full lesson on this, you'll need to go back and look at the lessons on complex numbers that I did, right? And this is, so when you have this, we came up with a technique for dealing with this where we think of this instead, all right, as the square root of 36 times the square root of negative 1. All right, because I can do the square root of 36. That's going to be positive and minus 6, right? But the square root of negative 1 is not something that we've known how to do before. But we gave you a little talk about this, and we said, hey, you know what? We're going to call this I. And I stands for our imaginary number. So whenever you see a negative inside of a square root sign, just kind of pull it out, right? Pull it out, and we're going to call it I. Okay? And then just do what's left, all right? So in this case, we got negative square root, or the square root of negative 36. Pull this guy out. We're going to call that I. And then my square root of 36 is going to give me plus and minus 6. And then we always put the I on the end, like that, okay? The only time I doesn't go on the very end is when there's a radical following, or yeah, a radical in front of it. If there's a radical sign in front of it, then you put it in front of the radical. So it would be the last thing before the radical. So this is your solution to this, right? So it's basically just ignore the negative sign, figure out what that is, and then tack an I onto it when it's negative. You only do that when it's negative, though, all right? This last one, we have the same situation, right? So we're going to pull that out, and we're going to say, okay, well, that's going to give me an I. And now I want to figure out what number multiplied by itself is 324. Is this a perfect square number? And it is, because 18 times 18 gives you 324. So this is going to equal plus and minus 18 I. Okay, and that's how these work. They're not too bad, right? The straight up ones hopefully should just be a quick review for you. This is new, this whole imaginary number concept, but that's don't think too deeply about it and just kind of go after it. All right.